Okay, good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you for joining in this webinar. Now, today's webinar is about what's new in the ISO 27001, which has become ISO 2022 now. So, we are going to look into the changes which are going to impact us. So, before that, a brief introduction about our organization InfoSec Train. We were established in the year 2016. So here now we have reached the stage where we are one of the finest security and technology training and consulting company. So we have got a wide range of professional training programs, certifications, and consulting services in the IT and the cybersecurity domain. We provide very high quality technical services, certifications, or even customized training programs which are curated with the help of the professionals of over 15 years of combined experience in respective domains. So few of our endorsement, there have been 4+ years of services, 70 plus pool of trainers. We have the course offering for more than 200 training programs. Till date, we have professionally trained more than 30,000 professionals. We work with more than 10 valued partners. We have got more than 150 corporate clients, and we serve in more than 20 plus countries. Some of the our trusted clients include the names like Tata, IDFC, PepsiCo, Mphasis, Ericsson, your MDocs, Gap, NSC, SBI, etc. So InfoSec Train is a preferred training partner for most of the professionals because here we have got the instructors, the faculties who are not only experienced but themselves certified. We offer a lot of flexible modes of training. There are full day programs, weekend programs, or 2 to 3 hours per day kind of programs. All the training programs which are delivered are being recorded, and the participants have the flexibility to access these recorded sessions. So, post training completion till the time you take your exam, there is a perfect hand holding. There's a 24/7 support available. Training is tailor made to suit your organizations. Microsoft, CompTIA, ISACA, ITpreneurs, PECB, and EC Council are our global learning partners. So, coming to the agenda for today's webinar. So, we would be looking into the brief history of the ISO 27001. We would be looking into ISO 27001 2013, and then we will review ISO 27001 2022. We would be briefly discussing about the recertification requirements for the organizations which are already certified, and we would also look into the lead auditor certifications for the individuals, and after that we will have question and answer session as well. So looking into the brief history, way back in the year 1990, British standard was published. So the UK had published a British standard under the identification BS 7799. It was published by the UK Department of Trade and Industry, and it was named as Code of Practice. Then in the year 1995, it was reviewed, and the same standard as Part 1, BS 7799 Part 1, was again republished as a revised standard. And within 3 years in 1998, Part 2 of this standard was published, which talked about information security specifications. Now, in the year 2000, this standard was picked up by the ISO IEC organizations. So now, instead of being a British standard, it became an international standard. So the initial identification was given as ISO 17799. It was published as Information Security Management System Code of Practice. In the year 2005, it was reviewed and revised, and that was the first time when the new name was given to it, which was ISO 27001 Information Security Management Systems Requirements.
Thank you,
So
sir.
in the year 2005, we got our first ISO 27001 as an information security management system requirements. Now, in ISO, if there is any requirement standard, that means the organizations can adopt this standard, they can implement the standard, and then organizations can get themselves certified. Other set of the standards in ISO are the guidance standards. There is no certification against the guidance standards. Now, this was a new standard which talked about the information security management system. Before that, ISO had published quality management system, energy management system, environmental management system. So, but when the information security management system standard was published, then the ISO body realized that the certification bodies need to have some special skills to audit the information security management systems. So, keeping that in mind, in the year 2007, a guidance standard or the requirement standard for certification bodies was published. It was ISO 27006, which means now any certification body, whether it is BSI or TUV or Bureau Veritas or DNV or Intertech, any, you name any certification body. If any certification body wanted to have the accreditation for providing the certification services for ISMS, they had to fulfill the requirements of ISO 27006. Then, during the period of 2008 to 2012, there were many more additional standards, which were mostly guidance standards, were published in the family of the information security management. So, in the year 2013, the ISO 27001 and another standard, a guidance standard on security controls, ISO 27002, these were revised and published again. Then, after 5 years, as per the ISO system, every standard once published goes for a review every 5 years. So, obviously, the 2013 standard was due for review in the year 2018. The committee was constituted, it reviewed the standard, and in 2019, after the review, the decision was taken that 2013 version was still valid. So there was a decision to continue with the ISO 20013 standard. But later on, as we all know, the entire world was facing the pandemic. So there was a global lockdown, and people were required to work from home as a mitigation for business continuity. That is when the ISO committee realized that the way people were working has changed, and now there were serious impacts on the information security. So again, a need was felt, a proposal was floated that let us relook into ISO 27001 standard. So that is where from 2019 to 2022, the standard was reviewed again, and in the month of February 2022, first ISO 27002 was revised and published, and later on in the month of October 2022, ISO 27001 2022 was published. Okay, now let us briefly look into ISO 27001 2013. This standard was named as Information Technology, Security Techniques, Information Security Management Systems Requirements. As I said, in ISO system standards, any requirement standard means an organization can fulfill those requirements and seek a certification from an accredited certification body. This standard was published in November 2013. Till 2019, as I mentioned, it continued as being valid. But then between 21-22, there was a decision taken to revise the standard post COVID condition. And finally, it was withdrawn in October 2022, and the new standard ISO 27001 2022 was published. Now, as of today, this standard stands as information security, cyber security, and privacy protection. Information security management systems requirements. That means it is still a requirement standard. That means still organizations can actually get themselves certified. So the structure of this standard is there are implementable clauses from clause 4 to 10, which are total 7 clauses. Now, as compared to 2013 standard, there has been very minor changes, which are mainly related to the descriptive language being used. The major change that has happened is that has happened in annexure A of the standard. So in the annexure A now, there are four categories with 93 information security controls. According to the standard requirement, any organization which is implementing ISMS and seeking the certification, they have to produce a statement of applicability. It's a mandatory requirement. Now, a quick comparison, a quick look into the structure of the standard. So there are 7 clauses. Clause 4 is about context of the organization. So under the context of the organizations need to identify what are the internal and the external issues which would be relevant to that organization's ISMS. And then another requirement under clause 4 is interested parties, their needs and expectations. So that means now the organizations need to look into who all are the interested parties, who are the stakeholders, what do they expect from the organization when it comes to information security, and how their needs and expectations can be fulfilled. And later on, both these outputs on the issues, external and internal, and output of the interested parties' needs and expectations is taken into account for the risk assessment as well. So clause 5 talks about the leadership, its commitment. The leadership's commitment is reflected when the leadership is front ending the implementation and maintenance of information security management system. So leadership's commitment would be evident when the leadership would be coming out and developing an information security policy, identifying the scope of the ISMS, making the provision for all the resources required. When leadership would be having a policy which would talk about their commitment to adhere to the legal and other applicable requirements, and also a commitment for continual improvement. Clause 6 is about planning. So under the planning, the requirement is to look into your clause 4 outputs and then conduct a risk assessment. Look into what could be the risk and then identify the high risk items and make a commitment to treat those risks. Clause 7 is about support. So under support, the leadership has to look into ensuring that proper resources are provided for maintenance of the ISMS. Under clause 7, there is another requirement which is about competence. The organization needs to ensure that the people working under its control are competent to deliver their responsibilities. So that competence organization can look into either is through their education or through their experience, or the organization will make the provision for providing adequate trainings to upskill their people so that the competence requirements are met. Clause 7 also gives a requirement for properly managing the documents. So all the documented information needs to be properly managed. The documentation cycle needs to be managed, starting from its creation all the way to its review, approval, change management, finally archiving and disposing of the documentation. Clause 8 is about operation. Now, in the operation clause, the organization needs to identify the relevant key activities, key operations, key processes, and the procedures. Organizations are required to implement the risk treatment plans which they discussed and agreed upon under clause 6. Then comes the clause 9. Now clause 9 has got a lot of importance in ISO. It is the performance evaluation. The very basis of a ISO management system is that until and unless you monitor, you would not know whether you are doing the things in the right manner or as per the plan. So performance evaluation means monitoring, measuring, analysis, and evaluation of your processes. Another requirement under performance evaluation is that the organizations must conduct an internal audit of their ISMS. And the third requirement under clause 9 is management review. That means the leadership team of an organization must review the performance of ISMS. Here they would take into account the results of risk assessment. The management will take into account the results of internal audits. Management will take into account any feedback received from the interested parties. Management will take into account any changes in the context of the organization or any other proposal for continual improvement. Then there is clause 10. Clause 10 is about improvement. Now, under this clause, the organizations are required to address the non-conformities which get identified during various audits. So, organizations are required to take corrective actions and then continually improve their ISMS. So, this is a brief about the clauses. So all these clauses are having various sub-clauses which I have tried to briefly explain to you. Then there is an integral part of the standard which is called as Annexure A. Under Annexure A, there is a list of information security controls which organization has to look into. There are total 93 controls which are now simplified and divided into four categories. There are organizational controls, there are people related controls, there are physical safety related controls, and there are technological controls. Now, when the organization has done the risk assessment and they are looking at the risk treatment plans, the organizations need to refer to these 93 controls and then produce a statement of applicability that which all controls are applicable to their organization. So a statement of applicability would be produced and documented. So if you want to understand what is new in ISO 27001:2022 as compared to 27001:2013, so at a glance I can tell you in the ISO 27001:2013 there were 7 clauses which remain similar in the new standard also. Earlier, the Annexure A had 14 clauses with specific 35 controls objectives, and in totality, there were 114 controls. Now, the controls have been simplified, reorganized, and merged together. So, there are four categories: organizational, people, physical, and technical. In totality, now there are 93 controls, and in these 93 controls, 11 new controls have been introduced, which means 82 controls are basically out of those 114 controls with reorganization. Some controls have been merged together. So practically 82 controls are actually there earlier also in the form of 114 controls, and 11 new controls have been introduced. Now, out of these 11 controls, three new controls have been introduced in the organizational category. People control have remained same as were earlier. One additional control has been introduced under physical category, and 7 new controls have been introduced under technical category. Now, who gets impacted? The organizations which are already certified as ISO 27001:2013, they will get impacted with this new change. The organizations which have implemented or which are in the process of implementing ISMS as per 2013 and they are planning to get certified, they will also get impacted. The organizations who were planning to implement ISMS and were planning to get certified, they will also get impacted here. Then the people who are the certified lead auditors on ISO 27001:13 and the certified lead implementers on 27001:2013, they are also going to get impacted because of these changes. Now let us look into what exactly would be the impact. So if we look into the organizations which are already certified on 27,001 2013, there would be no immediate impact. These organizations still will have to requirement of adopting the new standard and making amendments to their existing ISMS so that they would get aligned to the new requirements of ISO 27001 2022, and they will have to get a fresh certification on ISO 27001 2022 latest by October 2025. So even though there is no immediate impact, but before October 2025, they will have to upgrade their management systems and they will have to upgrade their certification. So there would be no need for having a separate audit. The certification bodies would be looking into the amendments made in the ISMS, whether those are aligned to 2022 requirements or not, during the routine scheduled years surveillance or the recertification audits. Then, when you look at the organizations which had implemented the requirements of ISO 27001 2013 but were not able to get themselves certified before October 2022. Now, for such organization, again, there is a relief that they can still apply for 2013 certification. The time period permitted by the ISO is up till October 2023, which means any organization which started the implementation but was not certified, they can still approach a certification body for a certification of ISO 27001 2013 version. This leverage is available to them up till 2023. But after that, they will also require to have made amendments. They will need to adopt the new standard. They will need to amend the ISMS eventually to meet the requirements of ISO 27001 2022. And again, latest by October 2025, they will have to get certified on ISO 27001 2022 standard. So here again, there would be no separate audit specific to 2022 as per the scheduled surveillance audits. The certification body auditors would be looking into what all changes they have been able to implement, and they will be able to upgrade their certificates. Now, the organizations who are still planning to implement ISMS and who are still planning to get certified, obviously there is no impact on them because they are yet to implement the ISMS. But now they will have to adopt and make amendments into the ISMS to meet the requirements of ISO 27001 2022. So all the new organizations which have never been certified till now, the advice for them is to straight away look into the requirements of 2022 standard and get themselves certified on 2022 standard only. Now, the impact on the qualified auditors. Since there have been changes in the 27001 standard and new controls have been introduced, the existing lead auditors need to upgrade themselves to ISO 27001 2022 lead auditor certification. Again, there would be no immediate impact. Already certified lead auditors, implementers will be able to continue their work as auditors or implementers. But before October 2025, they will definitely be required to upgrade their certifications to the new standard. Their current certification will remain valid till October 2025. Now, whether the courses be 5 day courses or shorter, like a bridge course or so, that is the prerogative of a certification body. So, if you are already at ISO 27001 2013 lead auditor or lead implementer, please approach the certification body from where you got the certificate and check with them whether they are providing a 2 days or 3 days bridge course, or they need you to go through the entire 5 day certification course. So now let us look into what is new in this 2022. So as I said, there are 11 new controls. So in today's webinar, we are going to discuss only the new controls. So these new controls are your control on threat intelligence, control related to information security for the use of cloud services. A control has been introduced for ICT readiness for business continuity. A control has been introduced for physical security monitoring. A control has been introduced for configuration management. There is another control related to data privacy, which is on information deletion. Control on data masking is also related to data privacy. Then a control on data leakage prevention, that is also related to data privacy. Then a control is there on the monitoring activities. Another control has been introduced for web filtering, and one control is on secure coding. So one by one, let us look into these controls. The first new control is on the threat intelligence. Now the threat intelligence is basically having a prior knowledge of the threat factors to our information security. So the control says that organizations should ensure that information relating to information security threats should be collected and analyzed to produce actionable threat intelligence. The purpose of this control is to provide awareness of the organization's threat environment so that appropriate mitigation actions can be taken. Now, the attributes for such controls could be preventive controls, detective controls, as well as corrective controls. Okay. The second new control is information security for the use of cloud services. Here the control is processes for acquisition, use, management, and exit from cloud services should be established in accordance with the organization's information security requirements. Now, this control has been introduced because during the recent years, most of the organizations, one way or the other, have started adopting the cloud computing services. So more and more organizations, if not 100%, at least some part of their information or the application or the processes, they are using through the cloud environment. They are taking cloud services. So that is why this new control has been introduced. The purpose of this control is to specify and manage information security for the use of cloud services. So the controls which are expected to be implemented by the organization would be of preventive type here. The next control is on ICT readiness for business continuity. ICT stands for Information and Communication Technology. It's an acronym for Information and Communication Technology. So your IT hardware or your telecom hardware, applications, software, all that become part of ICT. So the control says that for an organization, because organizations are today heavily dependent on availability of their ICT infrastructure. So ICT readiness should be planned, implemented, maintained, and tested based on business continuity objectives and ICT continuity requirements. The purpose of this control is to ensure the availability of the organization's information and other associated assets during any disruption. So, because this control would be leading to disaster recovery and business continuity, the attribute on the control type here is a corrective control. Now, this is again a new requirement which has come up and which has been included, that the premises where our information processing happens, premises should be continuously monitored for unauthorized physical access. So during the risk assessments, it has been found that unauthorized physical access is a very big threat. So now the standard requires that there should be a control on it. The purpose of this control is to detect and deter unauthorized physical access to the information processing offices. So here the controls which would be implemented by the organization would be of preventive nature and detective nature. Next control is the control on configuration management. So configuration of the hardware, configuration of the software and other network infrastructure. So control says configurations including security configurations of hardware, software, services and networks should be established, documented, implemented, monitored and reviewed. The purpose of this control is to ensure hardware, software, services, and networks function correctly with the required security settings, and the configuration is not altered by unauthorized or incorrect changes. So this is a preventive type of a control. So when organization is going to implement this control, they would be implementing a preventive control to ensure that there is no unauthorized changes to the configuration. Next control is on information deletion. This is again a preventive control. Here the control is information stored in information systems, devices or in any other storage media should be deleted when no longer required. Now just to understand this control, this is majorly related to the data privacy. Now I have taken a mobile connection from, let us say, Vodafone. So while taking this connection from Vodafone, I have provided certain personal information like my name, my address, my contact number, my email ID. I have furnished the photocopies of my Aadhaar card, my passport, and other documents. Now, after remaining a subscriber to Vodafone for 5 years, I have got my number disconnected. That means my relationship with Vodafone is over now. Now, is there any reason that Vodafone should continue keeping my data? Standard is very clear, data privacy is very clear, absolutely no need now. So as per this control, information stored in information systems, devices or any other storage media should be deleted when no longer required. So the purpose is to prevent unnecessary exposure of sensitive information and also to comply with the legal, statutory and regulatory and contractual requirements for information deletion. So this is again a preventive type of a control. Next control is on the data masking. So data masking should be used in accordance with the organization's topic specific policy on access control and other related topic specific policies and business requirements, taking applicable legislations into consideration. The purpose of this control is to limit the exposure of the sensitive data, including personally identifiable information, PII, and also to comply with the legal, statutory, regulatory, and contractual requirements. Then there is a control on data leakage prevention. According to this control, data leakage prevention measures should be applied to systems, networks, and any other devices that process, store, or transmit sensitive information. The purpose is to detect and prevent the unauthorized disclosure and extraction of information by individuals or systems. So this would include preventive as well as detective type of controls to take care of the data leakage prevention. The next control which is new is monitoring activities. Here the control requires the network systems and applications should be monitored for anomalous behavior and appropriate actions taken to evaluate potential information security incidents. The purpose for this control is to detect anomalous behavior and potential information security accidents. So the type of controls under monitoring would be including detective controls and corrective controls. Then there is a control on web filtering. This control says access to external websites should be managed to reduce exposure to malicious content. Purpose is to protect the systems from being compromised by malware and to prevent access to the unauthorized web resources. This control also would be a preventive type of control. And finally, there is a new control on secure coding. So secure coding principles should be applied to the software development. Purpose is to ensure that the software is written securely, thereby reducing the number of potential information security vulnerabilities in the software. So this is also categorized as a preventive type of a control. So these were the new 11 controls which have been introduced. So from my side, I just wanted to give you a brief idea about what is new in ISO 2022 as compared to ISO 2013.